Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey guys, good morning, good evening. Are you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Scott.
Morning.
I can.
So just let's wait for a couple of more minutes for our people to join. Kurt, good morning.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Balaji.
Hey, Connor.
Hi,
Kurt,
everybody.
Hey, Kurt. I see Lucy also joined.
Hello.
Hello. All right, I think we can get started. It's already 3 minutes past. Lucy or Kurt, do you want to bring up the slides?
1 second. Business. All right. Can you see?
Yeah, we can see it. If you could actually put it in full screen mode.
Yes, indeed. Oh, please don't hurt me. Here we go. Are you able to see these, or is this did it error out?
We're seeing your presenter mode slide. Go back.
I have
Exit that
a.
and yeah.
There we go. We're gonna keep it here. Welcome.
Just click slideshow. Did you just click slideshow and that's what it did?
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, there you go.
There we go.
All right, thank you. All right, so let's get started. Lucy, you want to talk on this? Let's move on.
Yep, this is the antitrust policy. It's been discussed before. If you have any questions, you're welcome to contact your legal counsel, and you can always find more information at the linuxfoundation.org antitrust policy as well. As always, this is the Zoom meeting information. It is through LFX. If anybody has access or has access issues, please let us know immediately. We can work with the LFX team to get that resolved. The Etherpad, Kurt, if you wouldn't mind dropping that in the chat, I'm not able to access it while I'm in this mode.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Here is the agenda for today. I just wanted to say I can come off. Oh, I can't. I'll come off video for a second. I didn't get to meet most of y'all at the mini summit. I was actually added to Nephio to assume responsibilities from Kurt. I believe within the last hour of Nephio summit. So I just wanted to say hello. I am. And kind of introduce myself. So for most of my career, I've worked either in software engineering or data science, and a lot of it has been focused on technical exploitation. So I'm kind of coming off of that role and into a program manager role, which is a bit new for me, but it's been lovely so far. And most of my experience has been working within the Department of Defense and with other government agencies here in the US. I am based in Virginia, and you're welcome to find me on LinkedIn. But it's lovely to be here, and I'm very excited. Other than that, sorry.
Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, and welcome to the community. And Kurt, really appreciate all the great work you have done for this community. Really appreciate it. I think let's keep in touch. And with that, welcome, Lucy.
Thank you very much. And
fantastic. And I think the agenda for today is primarily a couple of things. We'll talk quickly about the ONE Summit. And we'll also talk about a couple of updates on the SIG side, also the TSC side. Then we also talk about quickly on the plans for next year. And there's a lot of great discussion happen on the ONE Summit, and we just need to follow up on some of those topics. And we would discuss on that as well. We'll discuss very high level, but I think more deep dive is something like we can plan in early January. Especially the first TSC call in January. I think we can refresh ourselves, like the core discussion happen and the next step of action items that we should be following up to make this project successful. So with that, let's go to the next slides, please. I think do we want to go quickly on the attendance, or people can go and put that into the Etherpad as well, whichever the way works. Lucy, do you want to quickly go through and see who's also on the call?
yes, I apologize. Let's see here. It looks like if you wouldn't mind doing the Etherpad, actually, this is giving me a bit of trouble over here. 1, 2.
Yeah, I can run through that real fast. Let's see. It looks like we've got definitely a Google representative. Timo from Nokia. Bernard is here. Bernard's here.
And then
Until
Yeah, so the Ericsson name has to be replaced with the Clarkson name.
Yeah, Karen Johnston, I think Sudi sent a mail to you guys earlier in the week to announce his departure from Ericsson and my replacement.
Thank you, Karen. And I think we will update the slide. I think we missed it on this round. Can we move forward?
yeah, I believe so. I mean, since we are doing approval of minutes automatically without, if there's no issues, then yeah, we don't need to vote on that at this point.
Sure. And there's no voting today, so I think we should be okay. So let's go. Let's go to the next slide, please.
just the mailing lists that have been set up. There we go.
So huge thanks to the community, and really appreciate all the people who have contributed to the workshop. And when we discussed about the workshop, I think people thought that it is impossible, but pretty much all the people come together in the community to make that happen. And I did actually receive a lot of great notes from people who participated in the workshop and how they enjoyed the workshop. And there was also a lot of great hits on the social media as well. So really appreciate all the people here, and whoever else that we missed on the list for the whole community. Thank you very much. I think this was well received. Let's keep up the spirit and work towards making this release one happening. And really appreciate it. And if anybody want to add any words, please go ahead. I see Sana, you are also on the call. Like if you want to add a few words.
Thank you, Kandan. Kandan, I think the One Summit was very exciting, especially the workshop discussions around when we were presenting the long-term roadmap and all the discussion ideas that were coming on the alignment of Nephio project with the rest of the broader ecosystem in the brownfield. And one thing I'm representing TELUS as a Linux Foundation Platinum member at the TAC level. And I saw that this became one of the board level discussions to align Nephio with the ONAP and other open source projects. So I think a discussion evolved from our workshop and that extended all the way, and that is now being taken at the board level at Linux Foundation. I feel there is a lot of interest in the community at the moment, and a large number of vendors community have also reached out to a big number of service providers to propose that they want to consider exploring Nephio in their automation models, which is a great momentum. And I think that happened right after One Summit, which shows that the workshop and all the efforts that we all put in together were a huge success.
Thank you, Sana. I think that's well said. I really appreciate that. And is anybody else want to add anything else?
Yeah, I think coming to the summit workshop and also prior to that, it felt great to know our team members better by working together. It felt sort of one team, even though we are all from different companies. So that was a great opportunity for us all to be able to contribute to a common goal. I felt very excited, and it was great to know a bunch of people that I worked with who spent time helping us. We all were out there helping each other out to make this successful. So that felt very awesome. I thought we are coming together to make this successful. So it was a great feeling. And thanks for that opportunity.
Thank you, Vish. I really appreciate your contribution as well. John, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just second what Fish said. I mean, it was amazing to me. We came in with a tight deadline, and everybody, so many of the people you see on here, everybody came together. And really, like I said at the summit, like we were meeting every day, and people were working over the weekend. Like it was really a great team effort, and it's pretty early in this community in many ways, and so to see that that teamwork come together gives me a great deal of confidence going into the cycle of building out the real deal that we can really come together and make this happen.
Yeah, also would want to, I know that Sandeep and Joe are not here. Want to definitely call out their names as well. I know you have called it out, Kandan, but they were available even on weekends to be able to help out on some of these things. I know Sandil, even you offered help, but we couldn't. But thanks for that initiative and for trying to, offer yourself as a resource to help out. So it was a very positive feeling coming out of that. So thank you.
Thanks, Fish. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Does anybody else want to add anything more before we move on to the next slide?
Yeah, Eric. So yes, yeah, maybe. I was very impressed also by this whole activity to prepare the workshop. It's very. I was impressed by all that. So unfortunately, I was not able to attend physically to the workshop, but I was able to virtually contribute to it, and it was very. I think it was very amazing the way we collectively did it, especially a few few guys. So I try to help a little bit, but I think yes, it was very very good opportunity to work all together.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
If
Thank
I
you.
may
And
jump
one
in.
more thing I wanted to add is I echo what John and Rich said. It's really exciting. Another exciting thing was to see how excited people were to attend both the Nephio session that John and Stephen gave on the first day, and then the Nephio summit the next day. So they were all excited. They were all curious. It's very encouraging for us as a community going forward for this one.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Anne, please.
Hi, thanks. I just want to recognize John and Vim for pulling together the core of the demo. It was super impressive and exciting to watch them work in the hotel lobbies, at airports and on planes, just to pull everything together. That was super cool to watch.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think we can claim now that the Nephio was born in the flight.
Definitely.
In the hallways, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. It felt like a very gung-ho, get going startup, mode. It was awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
what
you. Really
excitement.
appreciate it.
Yeah, what an
So let's
opportunity.
keep yep. Sorry, go ahead, please.
No, I just wanted to echo whatever Anne was saying. And I mean, it's not always that we get these kind of opportunities. So I think when we get this, we should cherish it and enjoy it.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. I think I appreciate the whole community here. I think sorry if you missed somebody's name here. It's not by purpose. Like I really appreciate the whole community. And I think let's keep up the spirit and make the Nephio release one happen. And there is a huge excitement in the overall community to see the Nephio release one. And let's make that happen. So with that, let's go to the next slide. I don't know, Tal, are you on the call? Okay, so I just want to point out that Tal has joined a different company, and he would be stepping down from the vice chair position, and he would continue on this position until another person is actually elected. And we call for an election as per the process that we already agreed on behalf of TSC that I call for election for the vice chair. And I think the nomination will start on Monday, and we will end the nomination on January 4th. And under the TSC page, we will create a page for people to nominate, and they can clearly see there. I think I forgot to put the link here, but we will send that in the email as well on Monday so that everybody has that link. So I encourage people to sort of nominate yourself if you're interested to be a vice chair. And the nomination ends by 4th. Usually it is 15 days, but we're giving some extra days for making sure that the holidays and other things, doesn't stop people by nominating. So if you're interested, please nominate yourself by January 4th. If multiple people nominate, then we would call for election, and we will just follow the process that what's already been agreed in the community document. And if there are not multiple people nominate, then we would elect whoever that one person basically put their name in. So with that, is there any question or anything right now? I think, Tal is not on here, but I will also confirm with him like offline. And the assumption is that he would continue until the new vice chair has been elected. Anybody has any question or anything that they want to bring in before we move to the next agenda item? All right, so given there is no question, so let's move to the next slide, please. So I just want to give a couple of updates, and then I will pass it on to the SIG groups for providing the updates as well. And on the TSC side, the 22nd, the call is canceled. And Kurt and Lucy, please send out the cancellation. so that it doesn't, the invite doesn't linger on the calendar. And we will resume on 5th of January. And everybody should have an invite. If you don't have an invite, like go and register yourself into the into the Linux Foundation website so that you get the invites. And again, happy holidays to everyone. And I think this year, even though we started the project in the mid-year, I think we made a lot of progress as a community. And we got the whole community formed, and there is a 70+ companies are actually participating in this particular project. And I think the team did an amazing job, like the way we saw on the previous slides, that amazing job in pulling the workshops together. And let's keep up that spirit in 2023 as well, and make the Nephio release one successful. And there is a one specific action item that I am chasing with the Linux Foundation. There is a question that came up around the license agreement in the charter. The charter says that the TSC has to agree, then the language is a little bit, even though the license agreement is sort of clear, but it points to TSC, and we didn't have any specific statement in the community document to sort of like enforce those languages. And given this is in the charter, we are trying to clarify with the Linux Foundation legal team so that we know what the next step need to be. So when we meet on 5th, I will sort of report back like what we have to do with respect to this. Either we have to change it, or we just has to vote it, or the language currently in is like is absolutely okay with the legal team, then we should be okay as well. But I'm just pointing out that this action item is being tracked. So with that, in first week of January, I think when we meet on 5th, I think I will have the me and Sana, we will coordinate to actually refresh everyone about what we have discussed in the summit. And there's a lot of great discussion happen. Some of the topics need to be follow up, and I'm pretty sure that those topics will also get followed up in the SIG group. But there were a few action items on the TSC sides, and I think I will bring that to the TSC for a quicker discussion. We also talked about bringing, additional projects. Additional projects means that think of a sub project under the SIG groups, so that we can focus on some of those areas that people were discussing very eagerly on the summit. And we will talk about that as well when we resume on January. And we also will try to have a checkpoints for the release one. With that, any question on the TSC items before we move on to the SIG updates?
I just wanted to, you mentioned that people should have an invitation. So I wanted to raise that we're having some issues with calendar invites. Daniel from Bell just said it's not on his calendar, even going to openprofile.dev, it's not on his calendar. So if you're having problems, which I'm also having problems, go to openprofile.dev and create a support ticket. They are working on it. They've found at least one bug. The Foundation team has, but the more information we can give them around the problems we're seeing, please do that, because this has been a real struggle for a while, and it's been frustrating, for a lot of us. So just wanted to raise that.
Yes, and I'll comment there as well. If you have gone through the process, you have created your LFID, you've done all that, you have still are not receiving the invites, of course, make sure it's not something that is in your spam folder. But if you've done all of that, yes, please file a ticket or ping one of the, ping us, either Lucy or myself, and we'll be happy to help debug that process. It is usually, in my experience, when there's problems like this, it's either a bug or, which is kind of rare, they did just find one. You're correct. And there was like a back-end outage they actually had like 140 people that weren't able to complete the process. But that was part of LFID. So if you've gone and created your LFID and everything is there and you're still not receiving the invites, please let us know. We can actually track the whole process for sending the invite, making sure it comes, leaves the Linux Foundation properly, is received by your company email system, and, we can track it down that way. So yeah, please let us know.
So I think I see the chat and Daniel is saying that he has a problem. So Daniel, Kurt and Lucy, can you please help Daniel to resolve this issue, please?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, I'll work with Lucy.
Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate it. So I will put the email address here for Lucy, and I think people who has a problem, please email her. And I think Lucy, if you could help them, actually really appreciate that.
For sure.
Okay, and with that, let's go for a SIG network update. And I see Sana, can you please provide an update on the SIG network?
Yes, yes, Coach. Yes, Kandan. Since the one summit, we had one meeting on the SIG network architecture, and that meeting was also very exciting as we were wrapping up from our learnings and our discussions on the one summit. So in the beginning, 10-15 minutes, we brainstormed through some of the big ideas that we discussed on the one summit network architecture discussion. And we took some action items and we documented that. A big discussion that came out of that brainstorming session, and John from Automation SIG was also present there. We felt that we did a broader feedback form from all the service providers and vendors in the community so far in gathering their short-term and long-term focuses on what they want to solve with Nephio. Using that feedback form, Kaushik worked towards creating 3 distinct user stories for the release 1. And as we are further refining our efforts towards release 1, we came up with an idea that we can double click those user stories as a second feedback form from the community. And that will actually help the SIG automation work towards solving these user stories like in a more refined way. So that action item is still on the SIG network architecture, and we have to soon open up the forms to get the second round of feedback on the user stories that are already filtered for the release 1. So that was one action item out of our meeting. And the other big cleanup work that we did during that session was there are a lot of topics that the community wants to present within our SIG network architecture. So we looked at that sheet. We took some new agenda topics. There were some presentations from Verizon that they wanted to do on best practices of operators. And there was one session that we wanted to dedicate to Tosca. So people have a broader understanding of how the modeling board actually connects to the lower level of templates, like what is existing in Nephio, like operators and CRDs, and how do we connect that to the rest of the ground field. So those topics are still up for voting, and the sheet is already available for everyone. If somebody has difficulty in access, you can always reach out to us and we can solve that. And one more big idea that was discussed, and of course that is for the SIG and TSCs to work on in the future, is that there are a lot of vendors and there are a lot of service providers in our community at the moment who are interested in doing something right away. So currently our focus is on free 5GC, but there might be an opportunity for us to create parallel working groups within the network architecture so that these different vendors from different streams, some are working in ORAN, could probably work in parallel to drive certain use cases. And the program is very immature and it's evolving at the moment, but there is this option is up for discussion on if we can do some parallel working groups under T6 eventually, and when would be a right time when the program is matured enough that this can be done. So that was the overall discussion that happened, Kandan, in our last meeting.
Thank you, Sana. Really appreciate it. Anybody has any question for Sana?
Yeah, hi. Just to add to what Sana just said, Vim this morning started talking about the cluster CRD, and yesterday in the ORAN IMS provisioning inventory management system provisioning discussion, we're in the middle of discussing the cluster creation use case. So I passed the document over to Vim. It's from Nokia Ericsson. So I would love to explore a way to pull more ORAN participant and requirements into Nephio if it's appropriate, and would love some guidance on that.
Yeah, it is appropriate. I think people can bring your thoughts both into the SIG group as appropriate for that SIG group. And if you believe that it is an overarching sort of a requirement that you want to bring in, always you reach out to me and Sana. We can slot time in the TSC call. Then you can actually bring that item into the TSC itself.
Yes.
And if
And
yeah,
sorry, I was hoping also to maybe, I don't know if it's appropriate because I'm not familiar with standard versus open source organization, but I was hoping to invite Ericsson rep and Nokia rep, who are ORAN reps, representative, to participate. Is that okay?
that is absolutely okay. And
Okay,
this
cool.
is the open community. Anybody can actually join, especially if you want to bring in people from other community to have a cross collaboration. They are absolutely welcome.
Yeah, and in that context, Kandan and Anvi already had a discussion and a high priority that we need to bring in somebody from ORAN Alliance and that expertise and have one session in the Nephio and who can actually talk about how do we cross collaborate. So in this context, I specifically had one discussion with Bernard, and we strongly felt that somebody from ORAN Alliance and ORAN site should actually come and brainstorm with us. So let's focus on one session to dedicatedly talk about ORAN, and that would actually give us lots of good ideas on how do we collaborate cross-functionally.
Yeah, I would love to help out on that because I'm representing both right now.
Okay,
Well,
that's
not
amazing.
representing, but attending both.
Yeah, so let's target one of the TSC call for probably 30 minutes or 40 minutes to focus on that particular item. So let me coordinate with you to schedule that call in the TSC, and we should discuss that. And I think again, further discussion can be done in the SIG groups as well.
So, Kandan, one follow-up question: the cross collaboration with the standard bodies and other open source projects, and because this is coming up in the LFN board level discussions as well, I wanted to understand, is that something that we take up and discuss at the TSC level, or is it something that we can continue in the network architecture level?
Yes, so I think it's really depend upon the scope of the discussion. If a ORAN to the Nephio community sort of a collaboration or any other community to the Nephio community sort of a collaboration, I think the big picture should be discussed in the TSC. But if it is an integrity details of like what API or what specific thing or what automation need to do and stuff like that, and I think that can be taken up into the SIG group. So I think that's why I'm recommending is that one call at TSC level to have a brainstorm the big picture so that the whole community is engaged. Then having a pointed discussion on specific areas on the SIG group would be optimal for the community engagement.
Yeah, Kandan, I do believe that this is a TSC level discussion, because of course we are just starting that discussion. So this is going to be at the big picture level, and it's too far from getting into any release or any prescriptive discussion. So I think I'm aligned on the idea that the initial discussions should be done at the TSC level at this point in time.
Okay, can I say a word, please?
Please go ahead.
Hello, I'm Rafael Ben Hamo. I'm from Barnet Communication in Israel, and I'm joining this first time. And I am active in some lead member in TM Forum, and we are also working on an ORAN Open API that communicate with either the RIC or the ASMO for that matter. And I'll be glad to help, but I'm not a member of the Linux Foundation or any of this. I'm heavily active in TM Forum, as I said. And is there any way to participate?
Yeah, so you can actually see, you don't need to be a member of Linux Foundation or a member of Nephio in order to participate in the Nephio calls or any Linux Foundation calls. That's how the Linux Foundation is set up. Linux Foundation is a neutral body, and Nephio is also a neutral body. So I think there is no concern on that. So feel free to bring topics and feel free to have a discussion. And that's what we encourage in this community. So don't need to be shy of like, bringing any topics, or feel free to bring those topics. We are looking for more collaborations.
Great, thank you.
Sure. All right, I think that's a good topic, and I think action item is like I will follow up with all of you guys talked on the ORAN side. Let's schedule some time and to talk the big picture of integrations on the ORAN side. So let's schedule some time in January for the discussion. And with that, let's pass it to SIG automation group.
Yeah, just to add, Skandan, so there was one contribution that I had made with Prakash, Sukhdev, and Sundar on ORAN specifically, and I think it's already kind of slated as one of the discussion items in Sana's thing. So it was basically trying to bring all the requirements from the ORAN perspective and trying to see how these two architectures intersect and might play with each other. So, that could be, so just to put it out there, there's some contribution there already on ORAN.
Ravi,
Yeah,
a
got
lot
it.
of our
Thank
topics are actually in the topics form, and we need to get to that. And to solve that problem, I even discussed with Kaushik that we take our internal meetings to weekly instead of every 2 weeks, so that we can actually get to some of these agenda topics for discussion. So if you believe that your topic is a good topic to bring up in the next TSC call, I think circle back with myself and Kandan offline, and that might be a good idea. I do see your topic that is on the agenda item.
Yeah, it is. I think it's good to, because it's still at architecture level, and was kind of mentioning the things that's happening on the O2 front in working group 6. Yeah, what I was trying to say is that it's good to put. I didn't want to split it into multiple thought process. I could probably even work with and can look at it and probably have some inputs into that and basically present it as one discussion item, and probably in the next TSC something.
Sure, let's work offline on Slack if you're up for it.
Sure, yeah. I'll share that material with you. Yeah.
All right, thank you, appreciate it. And SIG Automation Group,
Sure.
John and Paul, please.
Yeah, so, like we discussed earlier, the workshop, I feel went really well. What we're doing now is in the workshop, we had that running on Google Cloud because it's what we can do quickly, but we're actually working to make that sort of downloadable, or basically you can provision that environment, that demo environment in any VM. That way, and even actually take right now it's using GitHub as the Git provider. And the team has already figured out a way to do that locally on the VM. So over the next week or two, we expect to have that ready. Actually, there's a PR out there right now, just needs review. We're also iterating on some of that functionality. There were things we couldn't quite get to in the workshop, things like SMF and things like that. So we're going to try to make that a more complete demo environment. And the idea here is not to make a working Nephio. It's all still proof of concept, but the idea is to use it to help articulate the concepts. And so along those lines, I'm also hoping to work with the team to put together maybe some short videos that kind of go over different aspects and different concepts that are introduced as part of the workshop, so that we can all help build better understanding of those ideas as they evolve. And speaking of evolving, the next steps we also discussed in our SIG is to, iterating on getting towards detailed release 1 proposals is challenging. And we do see a need for the SIG to come up with a sort of response to the workshops, rather to the SIG1's use cases. And in order to do that, we're going to kind of start with the APIs and functionality as defined in the workshop, and then identify the gaps. I think there's more gaps than there's non-gaps, but still identify the gaps versus those use cases and stories and what we want to do. So as an example, we know that in the workshop, we had a very simplistic model for how workload clusters, edge clusters support different flavors of CNI. Well, we had them not support, they supported one. And so that's not realistic. That's a gap that we would identify and say, okay, we need to improve the API here to understand how workload clusters can advertise what CNIs they support, for example. That's the kind of thing we're talking about in that document. And that will help us. The other piece is something Sana mentioned earlier. A big part of the API evolution and the creation of these APIs is around who has the authority to create that type of resource. And so in order to structure those APIs, we need to understand how those lines of authority work within the telco organizations. So what the processes are. Obviously, it's going to be different across different organizations, but try to get an understanding of, what are the teams involved, platform teams, architecture teams, deployment teams, and which resources or which types of infrastructure or types of like vendor selection, for example, might be one, or it might be a different team qualification, things like that. And so each of these teams, so the APIs have to represent the ability, have to provide the ability for us to grant different teams different access so that they can use those to interrelate. So working with Kaushik and Sana around how to, along what those processes are in those organizations, and what. So that's something we're hoping to see out of some of that double clicking, as Sana put it, on some of these use cases. So plenty of work to do. Planning on, actively managing that work, and so we're also looking at using some of the techniques we used during the workshop, which is kind of like a project board to organize our work. It helps really with the community being able to pick up when everybody can see the work that the SIG needs done. People see opportunities where they can contribute. So we're also looking for that, some additional organization over the next few weeks. That's basically it. Lots going on. I'm very excited, and we will have a meeting next week, but then the last 2 weeks of the year, we've canceled the meetings. And that's all. Thank you.
One comment for you, John.
Sure.
John, let's work on that form together, in which we want to extract the orgs and process level information. And I totally get what you're asking. It's a very discrete process in every organization, and there might be a lot of variation. So as we draft and get this out to community, I will sync up with you in drafting the questions, right?
Okay, awesome. Sounds great. Thank you.
All right, so thank you very much. And SIG release, Stephen and Tina, are you on the call?
Okay, so actually I updated the deck, but I guess I updated the deck after you guys launched the presentation mode, so that's fine. The big thing for us is the VM setup, the test setup that we did for ONE Summit. We are moving that into making it the core of the Nephio CI. So that's actually going on. That's where the meeting was actually talked about last week. Vim last week also gave a demo on utilizing Container Lab to set up the underlay network for a test setup. So that potentially could be pretty powerful for us in terms of getting different scenarios of how that get tested and verified, propagated into how we automate. So we'll further evaluate, but it looks very promising. For the rest of the year, to next year, obviously we have to set up our CI finally. So we're working on Prowl. And for that, next Monday's meeting is still on. So if you're interested to talk more, please come. But then the December 26th meeting, I guess, goes without saying that it's going to be canceled. So that's all we have for SIG release.
Thank you. Really appreciate the update. Any question to Stephen or any other question to discuss today? All right. So really appreciate the community for all the great work which was done in this year, and looking forward to the next year, and happy holidays to everyone. So we will be back again on January 5th, and we'll continue the discussion. Thank you, everyone.
So Kandan, before we think, I think I had, sorry if I missed it. I think John had a question on the community license stuff. But is it a part of today's agenda too? Or?
We already talked about it, so I have an action item to follow up with the Linux Foundation legal.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed that one. I was slightly out. Sorry about that. So I had one question on that one. That's why. So are we? I know we are talking about Apache CLA there. So is there any reason why it shouldn't be same as Kubernetes, which is almost, but Kubernetes from CNCF? Is that the reason why we want to do this Apache one? the text almost looks similar. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer, but
See, I think this text is not only similar on CNCF, it's similar on all other projects in Linux Foundation. I think majority of the project use the same language, and that language is not changed. The charter that we have today for the Nephio project, it is based on the Linux Foundation template. So the clarification that we are trying to ask the Linux Foundation legal is to, because there's some words that like a TSC has to approve it, and TSC is formed after the charter. And we just want to clarify with the legal team. We are not trying to change the licensing of Linux Foundation or the Nephio. We just are trying to clarify, like, is there anything else we have to do, or it sound already out there is like a sound enough. Hopefully that answers your question. So it is a standard template that across all Linux Foundation that's been used. So we don't have any intention to go ahead and change to a different licensing model. It has to be the same licensing model that all other projects are following in Linux Foundation.
Okay.
Is that
Okay, thanks. Yes, yeah. Yes. So that means probably most of the companies would have already.
Yeah, I have the same thing. I want to make sure that whatever we use, it's something that all the companies have already reviewed and agreed to, so we don't have to go through legal processes at every company.
And I think I also want to point out that the charter was actually circulated when everybody joined the community. So your legal team have seen this particular thing when they joined the community, and that's how. So it's nothing surprising for your legal team for any of the company, right? And I think the part that we are trying to clarify, as I mentioned, that the wordings around the TSC has to approve it. So that wordings is something as standard wordings. We just picked it from the Linux Foundation template. That is a part that I'm trying to clarify. Otherwise, there is no change to the charter.
Okay, thanks, Kandan. Thanks for clarifying that.
Sure, not a problem.
And then I had another question. I mean, the weekly material that is shared, the presentation deck, I don't see it in the drive, in the wiki drive. Is it supposed to be there? Because only way I get to revisit is through replay the whole YouTube session.
No, I think the deck should be uploaded into the wiki. So Kurt, I think you are taking care of that step on previous meetings, and Lucy is going to take care of that from ongoing. So Kurt, I think what happened to the decks that we already had? I thought it's in the wiki folder.
Yes, it should be. We probably got behind because of the mini summit, but yeah, we'll get that updated.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, that will be good.
Thank you. So thanks for bringing up that, Ravi. Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Any more final question before we drop? All right, fantastic. Thank you very much, and happy holidays, and see you guys on January 5th. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
happy
you.
holidays.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.